Hello again, it's Noob, and in front of us we have a really awesome Vachette by Assa Abloy, like most locks these days. HDI, the Vachette HDI, which has a French A2P star rating. Either way, it's a really well made and awesome lock. I mean, just look at that keyway. Now you might be thinking, it's okay, you'll be able to pick through that warding. Actually, no, it's more of a ledge. There is no way through that warding at all. It's a continuous ledge all the way through the lock, so you can't pick through the warding. When we gut this later, you'll see that actually these little, maybe I can just get this pick underneath, these little key pins there, can you see? They actually have a little nib which rests inside this warding. Can you see? Which means you can't actually put anything easily down underneath these pins because they actually interlock into the warding. Very complicated. Lovely mechanism. I mean, it really is a lovely mechanism. It's just one which is not particularly easy to pick. So how do we go about picking such a lock? Well, I've actually put some markings. It's only a 5-pin. Not that it makes a difference because it is incredibly tough to pick, but I've put some markings on my pick. And this is because I've got a nice deep pick in 18 thousandths. This is a multi-pick pick. And I need that extra height so I can pick the side of the pin like this, and if I can line up the markings, you'll see that I can actually just pick alongside the pin, there you go, to pick it to full height. Now I'm robbed of an awful amount of feedback by doing this because essentially you're rubbing on the warding very tightly either side. Now this isn't cheating because you don't just like line up your pick to the top of the lock and put some markings. You'll see the markings don't quite align. What you do is you literally just put your pick in and you find where the pin springs and put a mark. Next pin, it springs, put a mark. Next pin, it springs, put a mark. Next pin, it springs, put a mark. Why? Well, if you're going to be robbed of feedback, and you can tell that by looking at the keyway like this, then it helps to know when you're going to be on a pin, because it isn't quite as easy to determine when you don't have as good feedback. So it's absolutely not in any way cheating. This is something you could do without knowing anything about the lock other than seeing the front and just putting in your pick and marking off when you feel the pin spring. So there's one there, one there, one there, one here, and at the front one there. So yeah, that's what I would recommend, whether you're a locksmith picking one of these out in the wild, or whether you're like me at home. It really helps to just mark off with a marker pen where each of those pins are. Right, enough talking, let's grab a vise and well, I'll try and pick it. So here we are, all in the vise, and just look at that bitting again. The reason why this lock is in particular so hard to pick is because of this bitting and the warding. You've got to pick pin 1 and 3, well, 1 to almost full height and 3 to full height, and that is incredibly difficult to do with virtually no feedback and such horrific warding. Even if you're using an 18 thousandth pick like this, which is marked off, it's just hard. I've removed the circlip from the back, so I've got to be very careful as I do this for you, which is to just insert the key and give it a wiggle round. There we go. Make sure that I put my finger over the front so the whole thing doesn't explode on me. Tension will be provided by this tension tool, just a bit of wiper blade insert, and pretty fierce amounts of tension on here, purely because you know, I'm being robbed of a lot of feedback, so I need to get as much as I can from this in the best way that I can do it. So okay, that should suffice for now. Okay, so nothing on 5, nothing on 4, something on 3 there, 2, double click on 2, just test 1, get onto 1, no, seems fine, okay. I just test pin 5, nothing, double click on 4, back to 3, 2 picked, 1 now, I think 1's binding. If I get onto it, oh, and look at that, we are open. That is definitely the fastest I've picked this. I picked it probably 3 times running up to this video, and yeah, definitely the fastest I have picked that. That doesn't mean that this is an easy lock by any means, just because somebody picks it on a YouTube video fast, as we should all be aware. Quite often there is a degree of practice involved in doing these videos, mostly because I have to explore these locks and figure out how on earth do I pick a lock quite like this. So yeah, let's have a look on the inside of this. It really is an interesting thing, this lock. So first things first, let's just see how this pick interacts with those pins. So I can pick pin just about, I think. Yep, and pick pin 5, 4. Now 3 is very hard to get to full height. As you can see, you've got to sort of push forwards on the pick, but you can get there just. See that? Just get there. Pin 2 is relatively easy compared to that, and pin 1, you can get onto it, is again not too hard. There you go, pin 1. So they are really tough to get onto. Let me just tip these out quickly if I can. Ooh. That was actually pin 5. Another thing is, just look at the front warding on this here, and you'll see how it's very hard to pick full height in this. You can see how this pick is rubbing against all that warding. You've got to align it just perfectly to just get through there, and even then you can see that I'm being completely robbed of feedback, that it's sort of being clamped between the jaws, if you know what I mean. So yeah, very uncomfortable in there, even with the pick this thin. If you use something pick which is thinner, then you probably have to use less tension. Yes, it's all a trade-off, this kind of stuff. It's all a trade-off. Okay, let's have a look at what the driver pins are like, and then we'll go back to those key pins, because those key pins are really something special. I think that these are, thankfully, all standard driver pins, which again is a mercy. It's a lock which, if anything, is relying on the Keyway to stop you from being able to pick, which, let's face it, it does very effectively. Let's just tip those springs out at the same time and get them out. As I suspected when I was picking, these are all stainless steel springs. I suspected that because they were offering quite a lot of counterforce when I was picking, and that really is noticeable. Okay, right, just look at these amazing key pins. I'll just flip some of them the right way around for you, and then we'll have a look at one a bit more closely. And what you'll see is that these are spooled. So the driver pins are all stainless steel. Springs are all stainless steel, all standard driver pins. The key pins, look at these. They have that little nib on the end. They have a serration and they are spooled. Let's just take one of the larger ones so it's a bit easier to see. And look at that. There we go, look at that. So this part here, this little nib, or nipple if you will, that is what is, it sort of nests inside the warding in a little hole. I don't know whether we can see that down the keyway. Yeah, you can sort of see, can't you? There's a little cutout in the warding itself there, and that's what that little nipple aligns itself with. Then you can see the serration there at the bottom, just with the tip of my tweezers, and the spooling. Why? Well, if you overset this pin, then of course it'll fall a bit into a false set, and then you have to release the tension to allow it to drop back down, in which case you probably drop a lot of the set pins. It makes it very hard. I was just having a think about this, the fact that it does have that small cutout on the inside of the lock, just down there in the warding. That's probably the only reason I can get a pick that's 18,000th up through the keyway, because let's get aligned with position 2 and just see where, can you see how the pick itself, the pick tip in hole 2, can you see it there? It's only coming up through that warding because there's a cutout. I think that if they had drilled that hole smaller, there really wouldn't be any sort of place for the pick tip to rise up against that warding and up to the side of the pins. Yeah, really, really, really cool lock. Really high tolerances, very hard to pick. Definitely if you come across one of these, mark off your pick first. That's easy enough to do because you can feel the spring tension against the pins. And once you've done that, you're in a much better position to pick it. Alright, I hope you found that interesting, and I'll see you all next time.